All right, for 90-90 rocks, we're gonna be seated on the floor, and there's a lot of different variations to this mobilization. So I'm gonna start from easiest and we'll progressively work our way to the harder variations. So what you're gonna do for the easier form is start with your hands behind your body and your feet split apart a little bit wider than shoulder width apart. From here, all we're doing is dropping our knees from side to side, and the purpose of this mobilization is to help work the rotation through our hip joints a little bit. So when we drop to one side, we're in external rotation and internal rotation. And then when we flip, we get just the opposite, external on the downside and internal on the inside downside. So with the easier form, all I'm doing is just dropping those knees side to side, and I should be feeling some stretches through my hips the way I just described. If I'm not feeling too much of a stretch, the next hardest variation would be taking the hands off of the floor and still rocking the knees from side to side. The big difference when I take away that support is I'm forced to have to move a little bit further within that hip joint socket to allow myself to roll side to side. Something to note with this mobilization is you tend to crawl forward. So if you don't have your hands on the floor, you will move on the floor. You're not doing anything wrong. It's just something that happens with this mobilization. As we make this tougher and tougher, what we can start to do as I drop my knees to the one side, so I drop my knees to the right, so I'm facing the right side, I can start to fold into that stretch on this front leg, and I can even sit back into the stretch on the back leg before I switch to the other side, fold forward into the stretch on the left leg, and then sit back into that stretch on the right leg. With these 90-90s, you can kind of do them however they feel best for you. With that in mind, I do want to try and make sure that I'm getting a lot out of the mobilization. So if you're not that flexible, doing it with your hands behind you and dropping side to side is totally fine. But I do want you to progress towards not using your hands for any support. If that transition feels really difficult, a nice little trick is if you have a yoga block or some smaller pads that you can sit on top of, it'll make it a whole lot easier to transition. As you can see, my pads aren't perfect, but to transition from side to side, it'll lift my hips up and allow me to feel like I'm on top of my legs. If when you try to take your hands away, it feels like you're really crunched forward, try lifting your hips up with a couple of those pads, and it should make the mobilization a whole lot better.